Before you ignore that old jar of half dollars sitting in your drawer, listen to this. The 1973, 1995, and 1977. Kennedy half dollars might look like ordinary coins, but a few rare versions of these dates are turning everyday collectors into instant winners. From minting mistakes to special proofs, these coins have skyrocketed in value, with some selling for hundreds, even thousands of dollars. So don't make the mistake of spending these for just 50 cents, because what you're about to learn could change the way you look at every coin you've ever owned.
There are 3 Kennedy half dollars hiding in circulation right now that collectors are desperately hunting: the 1973, the 1995, and the 1977.
All right, listen up, coin lovers, because what you're about to hear will change the way you look at the half dollar forever. This is not just a story about a 50-cent coin. It's a journey through American history, through artistry, metal, and meaning. The 1977 half dollar is a coin that sits quietly in pockets and drawers, but behind its simple shine lies a world of politics, power, design, and purpose. A coin born from a nation still echoing from the memory of a fallen president, a time when America's spirit was rebuilding its strength through symbols like the Kennedy half dollar. This coin was not just currency, it was a message of unity, honor, and pride. And today we're diving deep into every layer of it, from the minting floors to the artist's desk, from the rare varieties that slipped into circulation to the stories hidden within its metallic soul. The 1977 Kennedy half dollar carries more than just copper and nickel. It carries a nation's emotion, minted at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. This coin represents a legacy that started in 1964 after the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy, when Americans wanted something tangible to hold on to, something that symbolized hope and respect. The U. Smith responded quickly, creating a coin that bore his image sculpted by Gilroy Roberts for the obverse and Frank Gasparo for the reverse, featuring the presidential seal. But by 1977, much had changed. The silver had long vanished from circulation. The coin's metallic makeup had shifted to copper-nickel-clad composition, and its presence in the hands of everyday Americans was slowly fading away as inflation and the shift toward smaller change reduced the need for half dollars. Yet the 1977 issue is fascinating because it stands at the intersection of nostalgia and modernity. Its design was the same, but its purpose was changing. Collectors were keeping them. Banks were ordering fewer. The mint still struck them, but fewer people saw them in use. What's more intriguing is how the mint continued to produce proof versions at San Francisco in stunning mirror finishes. Each one a time capsule of craftsmanship, precision, and national pride. To understand the full story, you have to step back into the economic atmosphere of the late 70s. The United States was going through inflation, uncertainty, and shifting trust in traditional money. The value of coins in people's minds was declining, yet the Kennedy half dollar remained. A proud exception, still viewed as a piece of history rather than simple change. By this time, minting techniques were improving. Presses were faster, engravings sharper, and quality control tighter. And that made the 1977 issue one of the better struck. Clad half dollars of the decade, still certain varieties stood out. Coins with stronger strikes, cleaner fields, or slight die variations that collectors would later identify as rarities. These tiny details turned an ordinary 50-cent piece into a treasure hunt. And then there's the human story behind it. In 1977, Americans still felt a deep connection to the Kennedy name. The country was healing from years of political scandal and division, and in the midst of that, the coin continued to act as a reminder of what leadership once meant. The design, with Kennedy's forward gaze, his youthful energy, and the presidential seal, was not just art, it was symbolism. The belief that the ideals of service, honor, and courage lived on in the hearts of the people. The 1977 half dollar was minted in massive quantities, over 43 million in Philadelphia, more than 31 million in Denver, and about 25 million proof coins in San Francisco. Yet despite the numbers, it rarely appeared in pocket change. The U.S. Mint shipped most to banks, where they sat idle or were returned. This scarcity in circulation has since made even circulated examples feel nostalgic for collectors today. The condition and luster of these coins vary widely, and uncirculated or proof versions remain popular, especially among those building full Kennedy series sets from 1964 onward. The coin's physical details reflect mid-century American ideals. The obverse, with the portrait of John F. Kennedy facing left, marked with the date 1977, and mint mark below the neck, The reverse featuring the heraldic eagle inspired by the presidential seal surrounded by 50 stars. Every curve line and texture of the coin captures a moment in American design philosophy. It's clean, symmetrical, and bold, designed to endure and reflect national dignity. The composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper core gave it that signature silver-like shine without the precious metal value, but with remarkable resilience that allowed it to withstand decades of handling. If we trace how the half-dollar evolved, we see that by 1977 it had become more commemorative than practical. People didn't spend it often. It was used in casinos, collector's sets, or kept as keepsakes. The coin's large size made it awkward for daily use, but perfect for display, and its design made it a sentimental piece that many associated with patriotism and memory, and this shift from currency to collectible defines its modern legacy in the grand timeline of American coinage. The 1977 half-dollar marks the end of one era and the quiet continuation of another era, where design integrity and symbolism mattered as much as economic utility, where each mint mark told a different story, and where even a common coin could carry uncommon meaning today when collectors examine a 1977 half-dollar. They're not just holding metal. They're holding continuity from a time when coins were more than transactions. They were tributes to history. So as we dive deeper into this 2-hour journey, we'll explore how each element of the 1977 Kennedy half-dollar connects with broader stories in American history, the politics of its creation, the artistry behind its engraving, the economics of its minting, and the emotional legacy it carries to this day. We'll talk about the proof coins, the mint sets, the varieties, the grading, the market values, and the secret details that only experts notice, because this isn't just a coin, it's a window into a nation's past. Have you ever held a coin in your hand that carries not just silver and copper, but a piece of American legacy, a symbol of power, politics, and history? The 1973 Kennedy half-dollar is more than just 50 cents. It is a story of a nation's pride, a reflection of change in American coinage, and a monument to a fallen president. Today, we dive deep into the untold secrets of the 1973 half-dollar coin, a coin that never reached the pockets of many Americans and yet continues to fascinate collectors around the world. From the rise of John F. Kennedy to the fall of silver in circulation, this coin connects generations of minting technology, artistry, and national sentiment. If you think all coins are created equal, get ready, because by the end of this story you will look at every half-dollar differently forever. The year was 1973 and the United States was going through significant changes. The Vietnam War was drawing toward its end. Watergate was shaking the trust of the American people, and inflation was creeping into everyday life. In the midst of this shifting national atmosphere, the United States Mint continued to produce one of its most iconic coins, the Kennedy half-dollar. The coin itself was introduced in 1964 as a tribute to President John Fitzgerald Kennedy following his tragic assassination in 1963. The American public demanded a coin that would honor him, and in an unprecedented move, the Mint replaced the Franklin half-dollar design with Kennedy's portrait in just a few short months. By 1973, the Kennedy half-dollar had already gone through multiple changes in composition and circulation behavior. The early years from 1964 to 1970 saw silver being phased out due to rising metal costs. The 1964 version contained 90% silver, but from 1965 to 1970, the Mint shifted to a composition of 40% silver clad. The Coinage Act of 1970 marked the final year for silver halves, and beginning in 1971, the Kennedy half-dollar was minted in copper, nickel-clad composition similar to the quarter and the dime. The 1973 Kennedy half-dollar was struck in both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and proof versions were produced at San Francisco. However, unlike previous years, the 1973 half-dollar was not released into general circulation. The majority of these coins were made for collector sets such as mint sets and proof sets. The Mint had noticed that half-dollars were not being used by the public in daily transactions as much as smaller coins like dimes and quarters. As a result, the 1973 half-dollar became a special collector issue which added to its intrigue and rarity in everyday commerce. The obverse of the coin proudly displays the left-facing portrait of President Kennedy, designed by Gilroy Roberts, who had been the chief engraver of the United States Mint. His design captured Kennedy's youthful strength, determination, and calm dignity. The reverse side, designed by Frank Gasparo, featured the presidential seal with an eagle holding an olive branch and arrows symbolizing peace and strength surrounded by 50 stars representing the states. The detailed artistry of both sides reflects the pride of American minting during this era. Collectors and numismatists regard the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar as a transitional coin, not because of its metal composition, but because of its role in American coin usage. The early 70s saw a decline in half-dollar circulation, partly due to inflation and partly due to public reluctance to use them as they were larger, heavier, and often associated with collectors rather than cash registers. Banks began to order fewer half-dollars, and by 1973 the mint was producing them largely for official sets rather than everyday exchange. Mint marks play an important role in identifying where each coin was produced. The 1973 half-dollar with no mint mark came from the Philadelphia Mint. The 1973 D was struck in Denver, and the 1973 S proof coin came from San Francisco. The proof coins were highly polished with mirrored fields and frosted designs, making them particularly appealing to collectors. The proof sets containing the 1973 S half-dollar are now valued by numismatists for their beauty and craftsmanship. The total mintage numbers were approximately 64 million from Denver, over 80 million from Philadelphia, and around 2.7 million proof coins from San Francisco. While these numbers sound large, most of these coins were stored in sets rather than circulated, which is why finding a 1973 half-dollar in pocket change is rare. When collectors do find them, they often appear in nearly uncirculated condition, which adds to their appeal. Over the decades, the 1973 half-dollar has gained a unique position in the history of American coinage. It represents the era when the mint began focusing on collectors rather than solely on circulation currency. It also stands as a reminder of how quickly technology and public behavior changed. In the world of money, by the 1970s, vending machines, cash registers, and public habits favored smaller coins and bills. The half-dollar became more of a novelty than a necessity. However, within the collecting community, the 1973 half-dollar holds both nostalgic and artistic value. It carries the continued legacy of John F. Kennedy, a figure who remains one of the most admired presidents in American history. The Kennedy portrait is considered one of the most beautifully rendered images in modern numismatics, in the 1973 edition maintains the purity of that original design before later modifications to the mint's process slightly altered the portrait's details. Today, grading services such as PCGS and NGC often receive 1973 half-dollars. In mint state condition, coins graded MS65 and above can command premium prices, especially for proof versions or coins with exceptional luster and strike quality. The coin's metallic composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core gives it durability and a distinct bright silvery appearance that has held up remarkably well over the years. If you look closely at a 1973 Kennedy half-dollar under magnification, you can see the intricate detailing on Kennedy's hair and the fine texture in the eagle's feathers on the reverse. The craftsmanship and precision were exceptional for the time, considering the limitations of 1970s minting machinery. Each proof coin was hand-polished and struck multiple times with carefully prepared dies to create that mirror, like brilliance collectors love today. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the Kennedy half-dollar remained in limited production largely for collectors. The legacy of the 1973 version continued to grow because it represented that early turning point when these coins stopped being common change and became true collectibles. For those who started coin collecting during this period, the 1973 edition often marks one of their first introductions to the hobby in recent years. Interest in half-dollars has surged again, particularly among younger collectors who are rediscovering the historical and aesthetic significance of mid-20th century coins. The 1973 half-dollar often becomes a centerpiece for collections that focus on the post-silver era of U.S. coinage. It tells a powerful story of how America's economy, politics, and cultural memory merged into a single piece of metal. From a historical perspective, the Kennedy half-dollar remains a tribute, not just to a man, but to an ideal. The coin stands for leadership, vision, and hope. The 1973 edition encapsulates that spirit at a time when the nation itself was searching for renewal amid political and economic challenges. Its endurance in the world of numismatics shows that symbols matter and that even 50 cents can carry a nation's pride. All right, imagine the camera slowly zooms in on a shiny silver coin resting under a warm golden light. The words half-dollar 1995 glowing as if guarding a mystery forgotten by time. Then your voice begins, smooth, powerful, and magnetic. Have you ever wondered what stories lie within a simple coin? What if I told you that the 1995 half-dollar isn't just a piece of metal? It's a gateway into American history, a silent witness of a nation's pride and progress, a coin that represents change, artistry, politics, and value, all melted into one small circle of silver beauty. Welcome to the untold story of the 1995 half-dollar, a story that will take you through decades of craftsmanship, secrets of the United States Mint, and the cultural power hidden behind every strike. This isn't just about a coin, it's about America's evolving spirit, about collectors chasing perfection, and about how one coin can reveal the rise of modern numismatics. Now, let's begin this journey from the very beginning. The 1995 half-dollar, also known as the Kennedy half-dollar, was part of a series that began in 1964, following the tragic assassination of President John F. Kennedy. His image replaced Benjamin Franklin's on the coin by the order of the United States Mint and Congress to honor the fallen leader. The 1995 issue was struck more than 30 years after that event, yet it carried the same emotional legacy that had defined the coin since its birth in the early 60s. But by 1995, the half-dollar had become more symbolic than practical. It was rarely used in everyday transactions. Many Americans considered it more of a collector's piece than circulating money. And that perception shaped the minting strategy. The United States Mint produced several versions that year from the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, as well as special proof issues from San Francisco, each mint mark telling a different story. In Philadelphia, no mint mark appeared on the coin its mintage reached, tens of millions ensuring it was available but not always seen in circulation. The Denver Mint added the small letter D, marking its identity, while the San Francisco Mint created the premium proof coins with their mirror-like finishes and deep cameo. Contrast collectors cherished these proof strikes, often packaged in elegant boxes, representing the finest craftsmanship of the mint. But there was something special about 1995. The coinage of this year stood at the crossroads between tradition and innovation, between the classic engraving of the Kennedy portrait and the modern production technologies that began shaping the Mint's operations during the 1990s. The obverse still bore the iconic bust of President Kennedy, designed by Gilroy. Roberts, a sculptor who immortalized Kennedy's profile with incredible realism, capturing not only his likeness but his dignity and youth. The reverse remained unchanged too, a heraldic eagle by Frank Gasparo, symbolizing the strength and freedom of the United States. The combination of these two designs had already become one of the most recognized and enduring in American coinage history. But what makes the 1995 half-dollar so fascinating isn't only its design, it's the context of its creation. The 1990s marked a time when the American mint system was evolving, adapting to new technologies and preparing for the 21st century. Coin collectors were growing in number, coin shows were booming, and grading companies like PCGs and NGC were setting new standards for coin quality and authenticity. The 1995 Kennedy half-dollar entered this dynamic environment. It became one of the coins that bridged the gap between the casual collector and the professional numismatist, with millions searching for the perfect strike free from scratches, with sharp details on Kennedy's hair and the eagle's feathers. And those proof versions from San Francisco became the pride of countless coin albums, glowing like mirrors under light, revealing perfection through every curve of its polished surface. But there's a deeper layer to its story. While the half-dollar was losing its role in daily commerce, it was gaining a cultural one. It symbolized patriotism, memory, and nostalgia. For many Americans who had grown up seeing Kennedy's face not only on their coins, but in their history books and family stories, the 1995 issue carried that emotion into a new generation, serving as both a keepsake and a link to the pastas. The year went on. The United States Mint also experimented with different sets and packaging. The 1995 proof set became particularly valuable when paired with silver proof versions, collectors noticed subtle variations in finish and toning, making each piece slightly unique. Some coins showed light frosted details, others deeper mirrors, and those small variations became points of fascination for coin graders and historians. The economic side of the coin was equally interesting. While its face value remained 50 cents, its collectible value grew over time, driven by its pristine condition, limited proofs, and historical appeal, especially when certified in high grades like Proof 70 or Mint State 67. And above, such coins could fetch prices far beyond their denomination, becoming investment pieces rather than pocket change. To truly appreciate the 1995 half dollar, one must also see it as a symbol of an era. The mid-1990s were a time of change. The United States was experiencing economic growth, globalization was rising, technology was reshaping society, and even coins were beginning to reflect that transition. The Mint introduced better quality control laser technology for die creation and new packaging for collectors. The Kennedy half dollar, though traditional in design, became a canvas for precision modern minting and enduring national symbolism. It stood as a reminder of American legacy. In a fast-changing world today, when collectors hold a 1995 half dollar, they are not just holding a coin. They are holding history. They are holding the weight of memory, craftsmanship, and pride. Each coin struck in that year connects back to the ideals of President Kennedy, his dream of progress, his spirit of unity, and the resilience of a nation that honored him through this enduring piece of metal, from the first die struck to the final polish applied in San Francisco. The 1995 half dollar remains a silent storyteller, whispering tales of art, politics, and passion that continue to echo through time.